Welcome to this first panel conversation of the day. And I'm really excited to have this important discussion, so focused on employment, to kick off the day here. And thank you, Paul, and the team of the Conduit for organizing this event and for inviting us. And it's fantastic to see so many of you attending here today. So thank you for joining us. So my name is Helene van Melle. I'm the Deputy Director for Europe at the 10th Partnership for Refugees. We are a network of more than 400 multinational companies that have all committed to connect refugees to work in their new host communities at scale. So we work with these companies in our network on hiring programs at all skill levels. And then we connect them to organizations that can help source refugee talent, like NGOs, and many of those are here today as well, but also diaspora organizations and staffing agencies. In this network, we harness what employers do best to overcome the barriers that refugees face when entering the labor market. And we do this because we know that employment is the most important milestone to successful integration in the new host communities. But also because we know that integrating refugees into labor markets at scale is the surest way to lay the groundwork for countries to welcome more refugees. Now, the theme of this summit is all about solutions, and we have a wonderful lineup of speakers here today, representing the private sector, NGOs supporting refugee inclusion, and personal experience. We're going to share insights with you about challenges that refugees face, about the effective solutions to overcome those, and some recommendations for what more needs to be done to ensure a job for every refugee. Now, let me briefly introduce the speakers to you. On my far left, we have Anil Kasemi, who is the project lead for Afghan resettlement at Universal Sponsorship Pathway UK. Then we have Hayley Johnson, the talent acquisition consultant for UK and Ireland at Philips. Next to her, Nutsey Sithole, who is the acting chief executive at Renaisi. And then Ashley Clark, central recruitment manager at Menzies Aviation. So join me in welcoming them, and let's get started. And this will be a 45-minute conversation, and then we'll open up for questions from the audience. So please save your questions for a bit later. The first question, actually the same one for all of you. We're here today for this discussion about employment. So for refugees that do find a job, what do you see as the significance for their integration to their new country and community? And Ashley, can you kick off, please?
Sure can. Can everyone hear me? Yeah, brilliant, great. So hello. So when refugees secure employment, it's not merely, in my perspective, a job placement. You know, I think it's the catalyst to be able for them to integrate into like, the new society that they're looking to, to really kind of filter into. And as a baseline, I'd say employment empowers refugees by providing not just that financial stability, which seems to be the natural thing to start with, but it also fosters a sense of belonging. We work in a very multicultural, very diverse community, and it facilitates development and integration into their new community. So, and beyond that, work enables refugees to engage with the local communities, which is, because we're in so many locations, we're in 265 locations globally, so we're in a lot of places. And it allows them to work closely together, get to know their people, get to know their peers, breaks down those cultural barriers, which is really important, but it also allows us to learn and innovate from them to really develop our culture internally. So in essence, employment is the key, really, to the door, you know, to enable refugees to become active, productive members of their new country in which they're looking to be a part of. And you know, it both enables them to feel welcome and enables them to really thrive within their new role.
Thank you, Ashley. Let's say over to you.
Thanks, Helen. Can everyone hear me? I think so. Hi, everybody. Really lovely to see you all today, and I'm really pleased to be sitting amongst some brilliant people having this important conversation. So I think when thinking about this question, I think you only have to think about yourself and the people in your life and what work means to you and the people in your life to understand what it means to a refugee who is fundamentally a person like you. And I think for all of us, we get a sense of autonomy. We are given the keys to self-determination. We are supported to engage with our local communities through work. We are given the spending power we need to project into the future and think about future planning. We can provide for our families. We can develop a sense of purpose and community with our colleagues. And we can exercise our own skills, abilities, our talents through our day-to-day roles. It's the same for any other person, and it's the same for a refugee. So for me, work is literally part of what it means to be a productive, contributing person in modern society. And without that, and denying that, for refugees, or to refugees specifically, in my view, is something we need to leave behind. And we have absolutely got everything it takes to be able to leave behind the statistics that we know so well about refugee unemployment. There is fundamentally, in my opinion, no excuse for anybody to be falling short when it comes to refugee employment. And there are several ways, which we're going to talk about today, that we can all kind of do a little bit better on that front. But for me, fundamentally, it's part of being a person in society in the same way as work is important to any of us.
Thank you, Natsei. That's beautifully said and so true. Thank you. Let me move over to Hayley.
Thank you, Helen. I'm Hayley. I'm working for Philips UK. I'm the talent acquisition consultant here. And I've got 25 years experience in recruitment. I'm not sure how much you know about Philips, but we're a global company. We're focused on health technology, and our mission is to make a positive impact to people's lives. When I joined Philips 5 years ago, I had the privilege to be invited to be lead on a local level, the UK, or the global initiative, to help refugees find workplaces within Philips. And during that work, I've seen obviously the practical benefits, the financial benefits to these people, to refugees in helping them to find work. But actually with all the people from Ukraine, from Syria, from Afghan that we've worked with, they've all shared with us that it's the self-confidence, the belief that they get in their skills, the hope and the inspiration that they get from the work that we do that is much more far-reaching. One lady that I work with is called Kate. She has just got a job with us as a marketing intern, and she shared with me that getting a job with Philips was an enormous sense of joy, which she then shared with her daughters, which I thought was lovely. And we also had, I've also been mentoring another lady through the Tent Partnership, and she shared with me that the work that she's just with my support, it's just given her family peace of mind that there's someone looking out for her. And that has just meant that she's got the confidence, she's got the belief in her own experience to go on and do amazing things. So I think what it really comes down to is allyship, just having someone that they know that is vouching for them, that can really push them forwards, has allowed them to have the courage to go on and achieve things that they never thought would be possible in the UK. And feeling included in that as well has had a massive impact.
Thank you so much. Anil, over to you.
Thank you very much, Helen. I'm Anil, for those of you who don't know me, and a resident refugee. I work for USP UK on the Afghan resettlement project since summer last year. I believe employment is not just a need for refugees. I think it's our lifeline, and because and it's a beacon of hope in a world of uncertainty and adversity. we want to contribute to the communities when we move, and personally I've been displaced. The first thing in my mind, all of us as a family, was to start contributing. But also, it's not just when you secure your first employment, your job as a refugee, it's not just about the yelp of joy, but it's very much about moving ahead to start and contributing to the communities you want to do, and also you get it leads to self-sufficiency, self-respect. It reduces reliance on the social welfare, and it is a strain both on individual and as well as the host countries. And I think employing refugees, it gives the opportunity to move one from being a burden to contributors to the communities.
Thank you. Again, I think all beautifully said, and I think we all agree as well. There's this great contribution people want to give, actually, how they want to contribute to the new communities. But employment is giving all of us humans had this confidence, this feeling of inclusion. And I also liked the word allyship, Hayley, that you called out. Thank you all for this. Anil, staying with you, from a personal perspective, what was your experience of arriving in the UK from Afghanistan? Looking to you build your career here, what hurdles did you encounter personally when trying to find suitable employment? Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Thank you. Of course. I arrived to the UK a little over 2 years ago from Afghanistan after the fall of Kabul. But before arriving to the UK, I spent several months in Pakistan in different hotels. And amidst talk of racism, both in conversations that we had every evening and on social media, I was pleasantly surprised with the warmth and kindness when I got to the UK. One memory stands vividly. We were in Grantham, and the second day when we got out of the hotel, and I went to British Red Cross shop to get clothes for us to keep warm because we came from a warm place. The moment the lady realized that we were refugees from Afghanistan, she refused to charge us any payment, and they gave us extra clothes to keep my daughter and my wife warm, something we will never forget in our life. Now, when I moved to the bridging accommodation, obviously employment was top priority for me. However, it was never easy. It was very challenging. Firstly, because we were waiting to get, we were not so sure where we will be housed, so it was very difficult and challenging to plan ahead. And secondly, upon securing accommodation, the daunting task of employment began for me, and it was very complicated, very challenging. I remember applying for jobs, even if they didn't align with my career aspiration, and often a lot of rejections. But I think the challenges were for me when applying for jobs were not knowing which websites are best to apply, not knowing, basically not having the network and confidence, and being able to express and impress under pressure. Obviously, the trauma of leaving Afghanistan was on top. However, I reached out to the Refugee Council, who I had that were providing support. And with their help, I revamped my CV. I learned skills. I learned network, sector-focused websites, and they referred me to a recruitment agency. 2 days after my interview with the recruitment agency, they hired me. And over the next 10 months, not only I expanded my network, but I received a great deal of support and motivation and guidance, and I have a very good relationship with them now.
Yes, thank you for sharing this personal experience. And how did this actually inform your work?
Yes, indeed, it has. I mean, since joining USP UK last summer, one aspect that always fills me with pride is that it offers opportunity for displaced individuals like myself to leverage our experience and to shape the work we are doing. And this autonomy, and I think this autonomy has really provided us the opportunity to plan the work we are doing, given that we now work with refugees who might be facing the same challenges as I did.
Yeah, wonderful. Anil, USP UK supports Ukrainians and Afghans living in the UK. what can you tell us a bit more maybe about their experiences trying to get a job, but also what's the significance of these milestones? We talked a little bit about that already, but also do you see any similarities or differences in the barriers that they face, these different groups?
Yes, absolutely. Please allow me to share a little bit of experience and data on this one. In terms of Afghans who arrived under ACRS and Arab schemes to the UK, the main challenge, of course, is the housing, which is stopping the refugees to get employment as well, because they spend a lot of time in bridging accommodations. Last summer, in collaboration with More in Common, we conducted a survey to better understand the barriers that Afghans under Arab and ACRS schemes are facing. We had a network, so we fostered a network to better understand the challenges they are facing, and it was the first systematic, from an organization point of view, approach to basically understand them. And upon doing the survey of different Afghans, we realized that in terms of challenges, obviously housing was first, and then we asked what was the most important thing to you to a place where you want to live. The top questions the number of people responded were, the majority of them said, close to job opportunities. I think that indicates the importance and willingness of refugees trying to get into job opportunities. And out of that number, we had 31% of the whole cohort who were employed into some employment. 61% were still looking for employment. And alarmingly, 51% of the women were not looking for employment, which I think were because of the language barriers. And moving on to some of the challenges that the cohort face is language barriers and childcare responsibilities and lack of network. They don't have information, as the survey revealed that a huge number of Afghans don't have resettlement knowledge. And the same with the displaced Ukrainians. They have, obviously, language is one obstacle, and then their qualifications are not recognized in the UK. So often they have to get an extra education to be able to qualify for those jobs, and again, childcare responsibilities, and to an extent, lack of information applies to Ukrainians too.
Yeah, thank you. That's very clear. Moving then to Natsai, employers can sometimes underestimate the skill level actually of refugees, and therefore the roles that they could thrive in. Can you give us an overview of the diversity of the careers and skill levels for the refugees that you support at Renaissance?
Absolutely. And just for those who don't know, Renaissance is a social enterprise based in Hackney. We work nationally and also in London across a range of areas. We provide social research. We're also experts in place-based systems change, but then we also directly support people in communities, including through our transitions program, which supports refugees with professional experience to find suitable work in the UK. So that's what I'm going to be talking to you about today. And yes, you're right, Helen. Some employers do wildly underestimate what our candidates are capable of and what their qualifications really mean in a UK context, and it's a real shame. All of our candidates have at least 2 years minimum experience. In reality, we say 2 years minimum experience to be supported on our programme, but in reality, most of them have decades of experience, 10 years, 20 years plus. I've got nothing on most of the people that I kind of see day to day. And, bring with them so much experience, not just on paper, but actually in terms of navigating employment systems and companies and organisations internationally, which I think is a wealth of expertise we could all be benefiting from. We engage with people who are qualified architects, urban designers, accountants, cybersecurity professionals, business analysts, the whole gamut of seriously skilled individuals, and also, obviously, highly sought after skills in the UK. We've got enormous skills gaps, particularly around roles in areas of expertise that will support a just transition to a green economy, to support the kind of digital innovation aspirations of the UK government, for example, everything we could possibly need. Many of the candidates that we support have those skills. The limitations really are how employers perceive those skills and those individuals in terms of their talents and their abilities, and then also whether fundamentally those organisations are set up to not only bring in that talent, but also to sustain it. Now, we know in the UK we've been having a conversation about diversity and inclusion for quite some time. And I think the refugee employment conversation fits very squarely into that, but actually beyond. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, because I think we do need to break out the cycle of thinking about this with a latent sense of paternalism that we're doing people a favour, when actually it's actually business that stands to gain from these individuals, in my opinion. But yes, there's wild underestimation, I think, of some of the candidates we support.
Yes, and has it been difficult for them to find a job then commensurate with their skills and qualifications? And I think you talked a little bit about it already, but maybe
it can be challenging. And as Anil has kind of pointed to, when you're a refugee, you have a number of additional challenges and barriers to face, and largely quite a lot of those are the invisible ones, the ones that are very much felt but not necessarily seen and tangible. It's how people experience you, how people perceive you, how you move through the world. There are structural barriers in the way of refugees getting into work that they really truly deserve. There is obviously the practical stuff around, recognition of qualifications, not having UK references, and all of that stuff that absolutely puts up barriers before they even begin. But yes, it can be really challenging, but we work very, very hard to support them through all of that.
Fantastic, thank you. These are interesting insights from the NGOs. Now moving to the private sector, a question for you, Hayley. What is Philips' commitment to hiring refugees across your business globally? And can you share some examples of how you've approached it?
Thank you. So in 2019, Philips globally saw that tapping into this talent pool was a real solution for us as a business. And it really went with our people strategy to offer a diverse work environment, which is inclusive for everyone. So we made a commitment to Tent in 2019 that by 2024 we would offer 150 workplaces to refugees. I'm pleased to share that last year, so 2023, we actually had offered 181 workplaces. So we're now redefining that strategy and that commitment, and we're now going for 250 by 2025. And how we've done it is we obviously have the overarching goal to offer workplaces to refugees, but we've actually initiated locally at a local level project leaders that are there evangelising and supporting the local country on what we're doing. So we're actually live now in, I think, 7 countries, so Netherlands, Germany, Poland, Turkey, Panama, Costa Rica, Australia, UK, and we're soon to launch in America as well. And through having people at a local level who are really educating, evangelising, opening up opportunities for refugees. We have found workplaces for people across our business. So we have now got people from displaced countries working as in administration, customer service, HR, finance, factory operators. So really across the whole of our business. And it really comes down to having both that global commitment that we're all striving towards, but also having the people at a local level that are having those connections with our people leaders, with the local community, with the NGOs, that is really making it happen.
Thank you, Hayley. It's so important to have this global commitment, but the local engagement. So I think Philips is doing that very well. Thank you for sharing. Moving to you, Ashley. So what led to Menzies Aviation stepping up to set a goal of recruiting refugees equivalent to 1% of its global workforce over the next 3 years?
So for those who don't know who Menzies Aviation are, I guarantee you've had something to do with us at some point. You know, going through airports, going through check-in, getting your bags on an aircraft. You've had something to do with us. We're kind of that sneaky people in the shadows, or in a good way, just a caveat. But it needs, the reason why is because we need to do it. We work globally. We're 45,000 people, and we're in, as I said, 265 locations in 60 countries. It needs to happen. We needed to make it happen. If we look at the people within our business and the people within our organisation, it goes, being a refugee is undiscriminatory in the sense of our chairman, for example, and he won't mind me telling you this, is that he comes from 3 generations of displacement. it's probably 0.00001% that he should have been a chairman of a global aviation business, but here he is today, and he's looking to really kind of drive, say, if we can do it here, we can do it anywhere. We've got numerous stories of people within our organisation who've come through this route. You know, we talked about earlier around, you know, we operate in Khartoum. You know, we need to be able to support the people there. We work in a global operation, so how can we, you know, give dispensation to get people into other locations? It just makes complete sense for us to do it. We're trying to put the fundamentals in place because we're on a long-term journey. We're trying to put the fundamentals in place to be able to support, because we are, due to the security nature of the aviation sector, we do have some hurdles to take it on board, but we're trying to lobby, trying to push the regulators to, as a sector, to make something happen. But just to kind of finish off on that is that the main thing, if you look on Men's Aviation website or any interaction we have, the key thing for us is our people. And I know it's such a cliche thing to say, right, that people make everything happen, but in Men's Aviation, it's a true comment that we seriously care about our people, because that is what makes us operate. And if we can diversify those skill sets and bring people in who are engaged, bring people in who have the drive to take their career to the next level and to bring back that life that they once had, we are all for it. So we are so on board. And as Hayley said, you know, I think we're trying to implement that regionally. If you get the voice of the regions, then it's you know, it's get them to do, you know, a good chunk of the work as well with the locals. It makes complete sense. So we're so on board.
Yeah, thank you. So that's, again, the takeaway, the global-local relationship. But actually, what are the challenges that you have faced specifically in hiring into your workforce, and some of the ways that you're addressing those?
As I said, it's a real, aviation is a real challenge, because, as I said, people are our focus, whether that's the people that we interact with as an organisation or the people within our business. So security is right up there. So if anyone here flew in today through Heathrow, I can guarantee you that the people you had something to do with had 5 years worth of referencing, 5 years worth of criminal record checks. They gave 2 forms of ID. That is a luxury, 2 forms of ID. Whoever thought that was going to be a luxury? But for a refugee, they don't have it. They don't have it. So how are we? So that is a massive challenge that we have as an organisation. And again, it's going back to as a sector, but also relying on working with our working with Tent, who have been absolutely fantastic, working with the NGOs to really develop plans and lobby the people who make the decisions to say, make it happen, because it can happen. We've got locations where it happens. In Denver, in the USA, they made it happen. They put dispensation into place. In Atlanta, we found a route, even though Jen will probably, you know, confirm this, that we had quite a feisty NGO there who was willing to take the airport to the Department of Justice. So that was a good battle to have. But there's locations where we can make true impact. So that's that's the long-term thing. We need to really work on that. But from a short-term thing is education. And when I say education, I mean our internal education. What people perceive as a refugee. You know, we all know that people, if they think of refugee, they've got a certain picture in their head. We need to change that. So what we did, we worked really closely with Tent. We partnered with them to create internal guidance, internal training, to develop a route to show this is how we recruit refugees. These are the definitions of a refugee. This is what an NGO is. This is how we onboard them. This is how, you know, you take on. So if you look at a refugee CV, how do you translate their skills into what we're trying to do here, and just go with an open mind? And that's enabled them to really kind of think differently. We're really trying to focus and flow that into our recruitment processes.
Yeah, wonderful, thank you. Natse, then to you, in your work with the private sector, what are some of the most effective strategies you've seen to facilitate access to the local labour market? What do you want to see more of?
Sure. I think just on the latter, so I think more of is basically what Ashley just described there, which is also some of the most effective ways of doing this. So it's taking that sort of root and branch approach as opposed to the sort of bums on seats approach, which I often talk about, but I'll say a little bit more about both of those things. So it's not possible to sustain a diverse workforce if the environment, the policies, the culture in and of themselves exclusionary. Like, that's a really important thing to recognise. And that means fundamentally that this journey is not going to be simple. It's not something that can be wrapped up in a short-term initiative that you focus on for maybe 6 months or a year and then we all move on to the next thing. It's not possible. You must, I think, and where we've seen most effective companies kind of doing this is where they've really committed to the long term and they've fundamentally thought about refugee employment alongside some of their other workforce objectives and centrally to their business strategy, and have invested in it in the very, very, very long term, and have taken that journey from the top to the bottom of the organisation and really instilled those values in their organisation from the top to the bottom. It's really, really critical because as kind of Ashley's describing there in those kind of small examples of kind of how his company is currently doing this, you have to think about the many ways in which there are barriers for particular people and refugees for engaging in the workforce. And some of those things are not super obvious. They're not really obvious from the off. And so you have to be committed to really looking at not only your recruitment practices in detail, but also your culture, also your day-to-day ways of working, what's accepted, what's a ritual, how do we behave here? How does that create an exclusionary environment where actually people cannot progress, let alone refugees progressing in your organisation? So it really is about recruitment practice, yes, but organisational culture and aligning with your behaviours and then also business strategy. It's really important to take that kind of systemic approach to how you're thinking about this. And then to add even more complexity, to try and think about the intersectional view, actually. A refugee is not just a refugee. Like, no individual is a monolithic example of X person. A woman is not just a woman, etc., etc. We are many things. We are many and various things. And as a result, your experiences of particular dynamics are going to change based on that intersectionality, based on that kind of combination of things that you are and things that you bring in terms of your identity. So again, really trying to take some time to understand quite deeply how is someone from Ukraine going to experience this workplace versus how is someone from Sudan going to experience this workplace. These are different experiences. They come with different layers. And it's really important to spend, again, a bit of time really thinking about how the dynamics in your workplace could be impacting different people. I think just to get practical, so that you can pin it down to some like specific things. Some of the things we've seen work really, really well is kind of skills-first hiring, rather than thinking about interviews as your first form of assessment or your primary form of assessment. So skills-first hiring really does support basically everybody. So you're not creating a new process specifically from one cohort of individuals coming into your company. If you transform to a skills-first approach, you're more likely to bring in women, Black and other minoritized groups, people with disabilities, people who are also refugee experienced, because you're starting with a skills-first approach. What do you bring? How do you do what you do? Rather than, can you talk to me about what you do? Which is a very different thing and a very kind of Eurocentric approach to thinking about employment, if you think about it that way. So thinking about the practical ways that you can break down those barriers from the beginning. I think also, like I said before, connecting refugee employment goals to your business strategy. So really thinking about how this is linked to financial outcomes, EDI, social value, whatever it means for your particular company, but ensuring that there is the resource, the focus, and the time commitment over a number of years to see that progress, because you're not going to see it in a year. It is going to take some time, and you need to invest in that and support your senior leaders to drive that through the business. Really, really critical. So that far beyond it being a fashionable thing on the agenda, it is rooted in your business, and you can keep driving it forward over time. And I think there's two other things I would say. Maybe start small if you're in a massive conglomerate and it's very, very difficult to get cut through. Then what can you do at a smaller scale with a group of allied members of staff in your area to start making some progress? And then through that, start to demonstrate what progress and success can actually look like. And then through that, you would hope you might be able to create a bit of a groundswell around making some progress on this front, where we have seen sort of medium to large businesses really make some progress, is where, in effect, rebellious individuals have decided, I'm going to take this on, I'm going to take on this challenge, I'm going to do this as a leader. I need to do this. This feels really, really important. So I'm going to drive it forward. I'm going to try something small. I'm going to bring in maybe 10 to 15 individuals over a period of time. And I'm going to demonstrate how I did that. I'm going to bring people behind me. I'm going to tell stories of what I've learned in this process, what's worked, what's not worked, what is it about the business that is actually getting in the way. And I'm going to influence as hard as I can while I'm here to make some progress. Then I'm going to hand that over to somebody else who's going to do the next stage and the next stage and the next stage. And seeing that, again, that systemic approach, you cannot change it all, but you can make progress. And it's really important to start somewhere. So if you can't do the big bang start from the center of the strategy, you can do something smaller in your department, in your area. If you are a leader, you can do those things. So think about what you can change at a smaller scale. But I'll stop there.
Thank you, Hayley. Yeah, and it's really about looking at the potential. That's one of the lessons that you shared. Thank you so much. Hayley, a question for you again. So in the UK, you led a series of employability workshops to help refugees, refugee job seekers actually living close to your UK head office to become job ready. Why did you initiate this, and what was the impact on Philips employees and those taking part, of course?
Thank you. Well, I'm going to share with you what I have done in the UK, and it kind of sums up what's been said already. So we knew that we wanted to offer workplaces to refugees, but we knew that just by saying it wouldn't happen. We had to bring our employees and our people leaders on a journey with us. And I started that journey when I joined Philips 5 years ago, and I've only just recruited our first 2 refugees this year, so you're absolutely right, it does take time, and sometimes it feels like an insurmountable mountain, but it is definitely worth persevering at as well. So we, I think, it has been mentioned already in the opening keynotes that there is sometimes the impression on that is incorrect on refugees. So when we're talking about hiring refugees to our local, our employees and our people leaders, they had some negative connotations that maybe they wouldn't be able to fill the jobs that we have available for, that we recruit for in the UK. So the kind of jobs that we recruit for we're a largely commercial organisation, so we are marketing, sales, finance, etc. They're usually requiring quite clinical or professional qualifications, and definitely a fluent English in order to be able to communicate with our internal and external stakeholders. So we knew that if we just said to our people leaders, right, we've got a goal, we're going to go and hire X amount of refugees, it wouldn't happen. We really had to sort of help them to realise and break down those barriers initially. So we started with some education, and we partnered with the Refugee Council, who were really kind enough to deliver some workshops with whoever wanted to sign up to them, really. And those workshops really placed asylum seekers and refugees in a position of positivity. It showed the journey that they've been on, the skills that they could bring to any organisation, and also the benefits that they can bring as well. So it's really just not just, it's actually inviting external speakers in to show the best that this talent pool can give. I then wanted to tap into the local network, really. So I partnered with our council, local council, and our local job centre. And through conversations with them, that's when our employability courses were really launched. So we decided that the best way to really find people work is to, within Philips, for our employees to work with refugees on a one-to-one basis and realise the potential that they can bring our organisation. But also through those workshops, the refugees would have the opportunity to demonstrate their abilities to us, and hopefully by the end of it, we'll be able to offer them a job. So we now run workshops with our local refugee community. It's a 4-course employability workshop, and it goes through several stages. Some of it is about writing CVs, some of it is about how to find a job. I mean, it's difficult enough for most of us to find a job, but this is equally more difficult because there's so much more navigation. It is sometimes different, like some of the stories that we've heard, people, they didn't know how to, that there were agencies available for them. They didn't know how to search on the internet for jobs, because in the countries that they've come from, they get work from knowing someone, or they didn't have to have a CV or anything like that. So we really helped them write CVs. Some came with them on paper. We helped them to get them written up so they can send them out. We helped them to know how to look and find work, and then also how to prepare for the interview. So we went through quite a lot of interview skills coaching, and it actually culminates in the last session. They're invited into our office, our head office, and we actually do practice interviews with everyone that's involved and give them feedback and a certificate at the end of it. And you've asked about the impact, Helen. The impact on our employees, it's just been so energising. Everyone involved has got an enormous sense of well-being and inclusion from it. And some of the things that I've been shared with was that they really got the opportunity to work with the most wonderful people. They were really impressed with the motivation and resilience. So we're already changing perceptions through the workshops that we're offering. And the biggest takeaway that someone had was the huge amount of talent and qualifications that they hadn't realised because of the media landscape, because of what we hear every day. We just don't realise the huge amount of talent. And as I said, we have hired 2 people now, but some of the people that we did work with didn't want to work for Philips, which is fair enough. But they've gone on and found work with the work that we've done with them in careers that they really wanted to go into. So it's just been really rewarding, both for our employees. And now there's not a week that goes by that I don't have someone come up to me and say, oh, when are you running your next course? Can I be involved? So it's really great.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Hayley. And I think we've heard from all of you a lot that does work for companies. So last question to you, Anil. What do you think, looking ahead, needs to change to enable more of the people you support to access work? Also reflecting maybe a bit on what you've heard. What's your view?
Thank you, Helen. I think to improve employment for refugees, a multifaceted approach is critical, given realizing the challenges. Improving access and more access to English courses, especially given that majority of refugees, if they are far away from the main cities. Helping them with getting the CVs done, as you have been doing, and obviously mentoring programs like Tent has now. A lot of people need mentorship programs in terms of employment, and then guiding them through the support that already exists from within the government and the humanitarian organizations and charities. It's important to signpost individuals and refugees to get the advantage of these supports that are available. However, perhaps the most crucial aspect, I think, is an openness and willingness from the employers to hire refugees, to give them the opportunity. And I think by doing so, they're tapping into a dedicated and passionate workforce. And something which is also very important to highlight is that refugees are having a lot of refugees are having mental health issues. Because they're being separated from their loved ones, because they're going through a very difficult journey. And by providing employment, it's not only about a financial stability. I think employment is also about a source of healing, and it allows the refugees to heal and to move on to the next steps. And I think at the end, it does allow opportunity for them to get that social cohesion, that connection, and it helps with mental health as well.
Thank you. Let's say, how do you work with refugees to help prepare them for the job markets? And what feedback do you get from those that are successful?
Sure. I would echo much of what Anil's just mentioned there in terms of what's really matters. I think, so in terms of how we currently work with our refugees, we try and be led by what that individual is bringing us to begin with. So another thing that refugees experience, and Anil's kind of pointing to some of that, is that through going through quite an arduous experience, being, fleeing from your home, possibly leaving loved ones behind, possibly also experiencing high degrees of trauma, then navigating the UK system, which in and of itself can be highly dehumanizing and traumatizing and re-traumatizing for people, and then getting to a point where you're out the other side and you're trying to find a job and you think you've just got that kind of like, okay, breath of fresh air. So when people come to us, they're a bit exhausted, I can't lie, they're a bit tired, and a little bit like in a place of sort of, I really need some proper support here. And so we start from a kind of trauma-informed place, which is ensuring that we're slowing down actually the conversation to begin with, spending good time building rapport, trust, and the confidence of that individual in us, not the other way around. They must trust us to support them through this process, which is very personal. So that starts with kind of really just spending lots and lots of time with that individual on a one-to-one level, ensuring that they've got that personal connection with someone that they're going to see throughout the entire journey. And then from there, we provide the practical support. So people have spoken about this already, so we're making sure we can support people with building a really good industry-specific CV. We might build them a couple of CVs for different industries if they've got transferable skills across many industries. We support them with interview workshops. We tend to do that as a group to kind of build that kind of peer connection. And we also provide ESOL classes and conversation clubs as well, so people can learn through engaging, can build their language skills through engagement, which is great. We also run those with both the partner organisations, the private sector companies that we're working with, and our team. So we start to, again, engage our candidates with potential employers right from the beginning, which is great. And it also supports those employees to also, as many people have pointed to as well, start to break down their own kind of misconceptions about refugees by engaging with that. Lastly, we also connect you with a professional coach. So most of you in this room, I'm sure, are very accomplished and have had a professional coach at some point in your career to move you on. We believe very strongly at Renaissance that shouldn't be something that's just, a privileged few can access. We think that's really important. So we have in-house coaches that work alongside our candidates, supporting them to think through what their own career objectives are and working them through that process, which is, again, building confidence, building self-determination, building that confidence that we all need at different points in our career. And if we feel it's no different. We also have a mentoring scheme. I'll wrap it up. But we also have a mentoring scheme, which we then connect again with corporate companies that we kind of work with. And then lastly, we also broker and support people to kind of connect with the right employers to get the jobs that they really, really want, as well as working with the employers to break down their own inclusive recruitment practices.
Yes, thank you so much. Hayley, one last question for you. On a personal level, so how has being involved in recruiting refugees changed your perspective? Your perspectives as an HR professional, but also on a personal level.
Okay, so I've got a confession. I was that person that I was talking about initially. I didn't think that we could offer refugees workplaces within Philips. And I have also come on a journey, the same journey as my employees that I work with and the people leaders that I work with. And now I think this is a talent pool full of the most amazing, wonderful, resilient, capable, loyal individuals that we really, it's a no-brainer. We should all be working with this talent pool. And on a personal level, I actually am the ally, I hope, that I described earlier, and I am quite happy to champion my viewpoint. So if I hear any of my friends or families saying things that I don't necessarily agree with, I will be stand up and put my point across. And I really, really hope that just one conversation at a time, I'm changing perceptions, and maybe the people that are working with refugees through Philips are also having those conversations and one by one changing the perceptions. And as you said, like starting small, it kind of has a snowball effect, and hopefully, like, we won't be sitting here discussing the same thing in a few years' time.
Thank you so much. I think we've heard so many beautiful stories, first of all, but especially lessons and best practices from all of you. So thank you so much for sharing. We have to wrap up a little bit, but one last question for all of you, but maybe in a few words only. This summit is all about solutions. So in the context of severe labor shortages in many countries and that welcome refugees, can you sum up in a few words why hiring refugees is both a responsibility and an opportunity for companies? Ashley, can I start with you?
A few words, okay. So, so embracing refugees into your business, firstly, it just makes sense, bringing refugees, organisations, to the organisations and to the wider society, it makes complete sense. For refugees, it provides that lifeline to shared lives, restoring dignity and self-sufficiency, which is really important to try and assist with. It fosters a sense of belonging, purpose, enablement, and allows to contribute actively to their new communities and integrate correctly and properly. Well, correctly is not the right word, but integrate in the right way for them. And for businesses, I mean, it makes complete sense. For us in aviation was completely, as you know, no one was flying during COVID. That was not a thing, So our numbers dropped massively, and we're still on the recovery from that. So we need to do something to replenish that talent, replenish those engaged workers, and I feel the refugee community can really assist us with doing that, because I think the one thing I've noticed, and it's been mentioned numerous times, is the commitment, the loyalty, the dedication that these people they give an organisation is unparalleled compared to other organisations, other people. It's incredible. So we need to do more. And from our perspective, the aviation sector, I know it's a bit of a challenging one, and I know it's we're on a long-term journey, but we're going to make it happen.
Thank you. A few words from you, Natsei.
I would start with a provocation, which is, if you are thinking about this, please make sure you commit to the long term. It's absolutely critical. It's so important. Commit to the long term, ensure it is centralised and resourced properly, and that you're going on this journey together. I think, as we've all said today, it's a bit of a no-brainer. We have enormous skill shortages in this country, and whilst I do not think we should be overlooking the fact that we need to absolutely resolve that by training and upskilling UK citizens with the skills they need for the future too, the two things don't sit against each other. You can recruit and support refugees into work with the skills that we need right now, as well as investing in UK talent. The two things should not be pitted against each other. It's a no-brainer.
Thank you. Hayley.
Yeah. So, I mean, it goes without saying it's going to help you to fill a skill shortage within your company. Any hard-to-fill roles, any volume roles, just don't rule this talent pool out. But I think actually the impact that it will have on any organisation, any company is far-reaching, much more than just filling roles. It's actually going to break down those barriers internally. It's going to reduce bias. It's going to really get rid of all those social misconceptions, and it will get engagement as well from everyone that's involved in any initiative that you do with refugees. Yeah.
Thank you. And you?
Thank you. I think in terms of responsibility, I think it's a human imperative, given that UK and Europe has honoured with legacy, and it's a duty to carry it forward. It's offered solidarity and hope. And in terms of responsibility, and in terms of opportunity, I think some of the best and successful businesses around the world are hiring diverse group of people and giving equal opportunity to individuals, and I think more importantly, we are also going a massive age shift. The UK has, for example, 11 million people aged 65, and for example, in 10 years' time, this will have increased to 13 million, almost 22% of the population. So it makes economical sense to hire refugees, and I think it's a good opportunity to do so. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for all your wise words, for sharing your experiences and great contributions.